live? Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Let's make sure we are live. Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. 1 second right here. Let's make sure we are live. Alright. Alright, alright, alright. Okay. Let's make sure everything's live and everything's copacetic. Let's make sure. Let's make sure. Alright. There we go. Boom. Right there. Okay. Okay. Let's make sure the audio works. Alright. Hold on. Perfect. Alright. Audio's working, ladies and gentlemen. Audio's working. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Taco Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Taco Tuesday. Yes, sir. Alright. Let's get everything all set up over here. Let's make sure we're live on the X. Are we live on the X? Alright. Alright. Alright, alright, alright. 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 Alright, alright, alright. Alright. Let's see here. Let's see here. Alright. Let's make sure audio works here. Okay. Good, good. Alright. Twitch. Let's make sure we are live on the Twitch. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Alright. Let's make sure everything's all set. All set and ready to go. Beautiful. Okay. Alright. Wonderful. Alright. There we go. Good, good. Alright. Marty, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope you're having a wonderful day, Marty. Happy Taco Tuesday. Yes, sir. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Taco Tuesday if you guys are having tacos. I might have some tacos tonight. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Never go wrong with a taco. I'm just saying. AMST shot up to 195%. RUBI now 186%. Had a high of 223% though. So you got that going on right there. All right, just getting everything all shared up and ready to go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. All right, let's get everything all set up here. Bot right there. All right. RUBI. Let's see about RUBI real quick. Let's take a look over here. All right. Let's get this all set up here. All right. Okay, there we go. All right. All right. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. All right. Getting everything all set up over here. Getting everything all set up. All right. There we are. All right. All right. There we are. There we are. Let's see here. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, let's get everything shared on the Yobi tubes. Let's do it. Bop, right there. All right. Share it up on the X. Let's share it up on the X. There we go. Bop, right there. All right. All right. All right, let's get that over here. Boom. Schmexiness. All right. Good, good. Legal says hello. Hello, Legal. How you doing, man? Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're having a good time. Hope you're doing your thing. All right. Let's see here. All right, all right, all right. And put this over here. Bop right there. Boom. There we go. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Let's share the Twitch. All right. All right. All right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. Okay. Good. Good, good, good. All right. There we are. Okay. Got some stonks moving around here. So, let's see here. Let me just put everything up on here. Let me get all the links. Everything all set. And then we will go and talk about some of the stonks. Talk about some of the runners. And then after that, we will go into the requests and the stonk reviews and the stonk analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. All right, all right, all right. All right. Let's see here. All right. Let's see here. Boom, right there. Bot right there. All right. All right. All right. So, there we go. We got everything all set up. All right, let's get this intro started, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, guys? It's Double Nicks, and welcome to another episode of Microcap Mornings. I am your host with the most. They call me DBL Nicks in the house, a.k.a. the Rainmaker. And I am here with the lovely Serengeti specialist herself. She likes to hang around the tall weeds, the high trees, the low seas, hitting them high knees. Sometimes she likes 2 cups of coffee. Other times she likes to jet ski. Other times she likes to regular ski. Other times she gets shot out the cannon and she goes, wee! Other times she likes to party and go to Arby's and watch videos of puppies and kitties. Other times she likes to go into the stock market where she'll find them ABCDs. Of course, there are other times where she will hang around and call some wonderful stonks like INM or RUBI or AMST. We call it Team Your Moms! Hey! We got that going on right there. That's what we got going on right there. So before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as ring that bell icon to stay notified when new videos are uploaded. And remember to share, because sharing is caring, ladies and gentlemen. Sharing is caring. And of course, if you want access to our private Discord, link to join is in the description down below, as well as the pinned comment section. So be sure to check that out, because we pick a lot of baggers a lot of times. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to check out our 4-day trial for only $9.99. Link to join is in the description down below, as well as the pinned comment section. So be sure to check that out. And also, be sure to check out our quarterly deal that comes out to a discounted rate of $66.67 per month. It's charged quarterly. That means 3 months. So you got that going on right there. So be sure to check it out. Again, link to join is in the description down below, as well as the pinned comment section. So be sure to check it out, because we pick a lot of baggers a lot of times. Without further ado, let's get started over here. Let's get started and talk about some of the runners that we called this morning. All right. This morning, we called quite a few stocks. We called AMST. AMST ran 310%. 310% today. We called it on our private Discord. Prior to the run up, prior to its run up 310%. Alright, so we got that going on right there. Alright. Hold on. One second. Alright. Alright. Let's see here. Alright. 1 second. Let me just make sure everything's all copacetic on X. Alright. 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 Alright, so just get everything all set up here. Bop right there. Alright, beautiful. Alright, there we go. There we go right there. Bop right there. And bop right there. Good. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 100. So we called AMST prior to its 310% run, right? We called, let's see here, because we called quite a few of these. Hold on 1 second. Ooh, MTVA. We did call MTVA as well. MTVA, we called that stock prior to its run up 109%. 109% right there. Alright, so we got that going on right there. MTVA. Alright, we called MTVA prior to its 109% run on our private Discord. There we go. Alright, so we got that going on right there. Bop right there. Alright. And then we called as well. Let's take a look over here. Alright. Stand by. WNW. Yes, we called WNW as well. Alright, WNW, we called that stock prior to its run up 334%. Oh my. 334%. Presenta. Alright. Alright. There we go. WNW ran up 334%. Called it in our private Discord. We actually called that stock earlier in the morning at yes, 4:20 a.m. Nice. That's actually a nice time. That's nice timing. We also called it yesterday at 5:19 p.m. So we got that going on right there. So we called it yesterday and this morning on our private Discord. Yesterday at 5:19 p.m. This morning at 4:20 a.m. So we got that going on right there. Boom, right there. Beautiful. All right. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we called another stonk. We called other stonks here. We called WNW. We called... Let's see what else we got here. Ooh. All right. Hold on. And of course we called the RUBI. RUBI. We called RUBI prior to its run up 223%. Presenta. We called RUBI prior to that 223% run. RUBI ran 223%. We called it early this morning on our private Discord. Alright. We called RUBI this morning on our private Discord at 5:59 a.m. Yes, sir. Yes, sirree. Yes, sirree. And then INM. We called INM as well. INM. Called INM this morning prior to its run up 185%. 185%. Presenta. INM, we called this stock prior to its 185% run. Alright. On our private Discord right there as well. Yes, sir, we did. Yes, sirree. Yes, sirree. So we called it early. We called it early. We called that one at around 4 o'clock in the morning. Yes, sir. So, that's what we got going on right there. Alright, there we go. So, we got those stonks ready to go. Those are the stonks we called right there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hold on. So, let's go over it here. We called AMST prior to its 310% run, MTVA prior to its 109% run, WNW prior to its 334% run, RUBI prior to its 223% run, and INM prior to its 185% run. We are just made different, ladies and gentlemen. Just made different, and the early bird gets the cash. Yes, sir. All right, so let's go over some of these stonks right here. So RUBI had a nice run up 223%, has since pulled back a little bit. All right, so we got that going on right there. Let's take a look over here. RUBI did have a nice move earlier in the morning. Bop right there. and kind of formed a bit of a pennant right here because it's kind of been consolidated below and above the VWAP a little bit. So right here, though, there is something that is kind of keeping me a little bit uneased about this stock, though, and that is the fact that this kind of looks like an inverse cup and handle, possibly, maybe. Could potentially be an inverse cup and handle. We shall see. Can it break above the VWAP at 462? We'll have to see right there. So RUBI, as of now, RUBI, potential inverse cup and handle, needs to break the pennant and the VWAP at 462 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya, but it did have a nice run up, 223%, shot up nicely. That's what it did right there. RUBI is a Greek stock. Let's see if it has any news going on. Let's see if it has any news going on right here. Let's see. They didn't have much. They had some confidential. They had some reports. They had some SEC filings and stuff like that earlier. All right, and let's see if it has anything worth noting here. Yeah, okay, public offering. All right. Oh, that happens. So honestly, this stock, I don't really trust it anymore. It had its run. It had its fun. Got in and out. Did my thing. You know how it is, ladies and gentlemen. Meh. All right, you move on. It is what it is there. But as far as RUBI was concerned, it did have a nice 223% run. It did move up nicely, but that was it. After that, meh. You know what I mean? You get in, you get out. Me personally, I don't like dating these stocks. I barely date these stonks. You don't marry the stonks. You don't date the stonks. You just, spend like a couple of minutes with the stonk, and then that's it. That's me personally, though. That's me personally. All right. But that's RUBI right there. INM. Now, INM had a nice run as well. That one ran up 185%. 185%. All right, so INM, as of now, 196% and climbing. Let's take a look over here. It did gap its way on up earlier in the morning. It shot up over here. All right, so that's what it's been doing right now. INM now 195%. All right, INM now up 195%. Needs to remain friends with the trend for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go. There we are. All right. There we go. Boom, right there. All right, let's take a look at VRAX. All right, now VRAX, let's see here. Bop, right there. All right, did have some, was moving a bit below the VWAP, curled its way on up and formed a bit of an A to B over here. It's B to C, C to D right there, and then proceeded to form a pennant right over here for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go. Has to break above this pennant right here for it to be schmexy to mya. That's what it has to do, but it is curling off the VWAP right now. Curling off the VWAP up 53% and slowly but surely climbing its way on up right there. VRAX, there we go. All right. VRAX curled off the pennant. All right. Moving its way on up. All right, so it's got that going on right there. VRAX is curling off the pennant and moving its way on up. Can it continue to remain friends with the trend? We shall see. All right, but in the meantime, that's what it's doing right there. Yes, sir. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 300. All right, let's get GIPR up here. GIPR has a 5 million float, 80 million volume, so we got that going on right there. It was a bit choppy, though, earlier in the day, so I don't entirely trust the stock too much, but it was choppy a bit earlier in the day right there. It has moved up since. It does have a good float and a good volume to it, but, it's one of those stocks that I don't entirely trust. You know what I mean? I don't entirely trust them. It just is what it is right there. You know how it is, ladies and gentlemen. All right. This stock had a bit of a pennant forming right here. Needs to break the 35-cent mark over here at the VWAP for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go. All right. So GIPR needs to break the pennant and the VWAPA at 35 cents for it to be so much Mexi to Mya. There we go. Bot right there. That's what we got going on right there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's get a share party going. Let's get the 300. 300, 300, 300. Let's take a look at INM again. INM. INM. All right. Looks like INM is just moved up there. All right. And then what it does is it formed a bit of a pennant right over here. InMed Pharmaceutical shares are trading higher after the company announced a merger with Mentari Therapeutics. So INM, as of now, does have some merger news going on right there. They got some merger news. Congratulations to them. Good for them there. You know, hopefully they make some money with that, but hopefully a lot of people made money with this, but it is pulling back a little bit. Needs to break above this pennant for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya as of now. INM did have its nice run up 195%, pulled back a little bit because, sometimes it be like that. It is a bit overbought in the RSI. As of now, needs to hold above the pennant and needs to break above the 186 mark, which is where the VWAP is. So INM needs to break the pennant and the VWAPA at 186 for it to be so much schmexy to mya. That's what needs to break right there for it to be so much schmexy to mya. All right, AMST, AMST. AMST currently, as of now, is trading higher after the company reported a year-over-year increase in their Q3 financial results. So they got that going on right there. All right, as of now, it is trying to move its way on up slightly over here. Slightly. We'll see what happens, ladies and gentlemen. AMST, AMST. All right, needs to remain friends with the trend and break the VWAPA at 246 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. That's what it has to do right there. That's AMST. AMST. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 400. 400, 400, 400. All right. So let's take a look over here. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. All right. MTVA. MTVA. As of now, needs to break this downtrend over here because it did form a bit of a downtrend over here now. All right, so a couple little things here. All right, it did form a bit of a downtrend now. So it did move up nicely over here. Bot right there. All right. All right, formed a bit of a descending wedge here, right, and then curled its way on up. All right. But then kind of pulled its way back down. So it needs to really break this downtrend here. And it looks like it's trying to, but it also needs to break the VWAP. So MTVA, as of now, trying to break the VWAP. Broke that downtrend. MTVA broke the downtrend and is moving towards the VWAPA. Needs to break above 197 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. That's what it needs to do right there. That's what it needs to do right there for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. That's what it's got to do. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. GIPR, GIPR. Let's take a look over here. Let's see how GIPR is doing. Still needs to break this pennant. Kind of consolidated below the VWAP a little bit. GIPR. GIPR consolidated below the VWAPA. Needs to break the pennant and the VWAP at 35 cents for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go. There we go right there. All right. All right, let's take a look and see what other stocks we got going on right there. Let's see what else we got going on. Alright. Someone requested PLUG. PLUG. Alright. PLUG is currently down 1% as of now. Very, very choppy, very barcodey. Not looking too schmexy as of now. PLUG has been requested of us. It is moving up right now, sort of. But not really. No, it's really just barcoding right now. PLUG, barcoding, low volume. Wouldn't trust the stock at all. PLUG, barcoding with low volume. Very choppy price action. And is down 1.45%. Not looking too schmexy right there. Not looking too schmexy right there. All right. Let's see here. Let's see here. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Let's take a look over here. QUCY. That was another one that was requested of us. QUCY. Hold on 1 second. All right. Hold on 1 sec. 1 sec. 1 sec. Here we go. All right. Let's take a look at QUCY. QUCY moved up slightly. Still down 5%. Moved up slightly on some low volume here. And then formed some indecisive wicks right over here. Just above the VWAP. Not looking too schmexy right here. Not looking schmexy at all right there. Alright, needs a lot of volume, really. Needs a lot of volume. I can take a look at the overview and I can tell you right off the bat. 11.2 million float, call it 11.3. Volume is 1.3 million. So, as I said, float is extremely heavy. Volume is extremely light. Not looking too schmexy there. QUCY. QUCY. Heavy float and low volume. Consolidated along the VWAPA with indecisive wicks. Not looking schmexy. QUCY as of now, not looking too schmexy to meow. Is currently consolidated along the VWAP. It is just above 310, but honestly, it's one of those stocks where it's like, okay, there's indecisive wicks here. It's very heavy float, low volume. Not looking too schmexy right now. Let's take a look back at AMST. AMST, let's get a share party going. Let's get to 500, 500, 500. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Let's take a look here at AMST. AMST as of now, still consolidated below the VWAP. Needs to really break above that VWAP at 246 for it to be somewhat schmexy to meow. AMST did have a nice run, though, earlier in the morning, but has since pulled back quite a bit. All right. And needs to really break above the VWAP. All right. AMST consolidated below the VWAPA at 246. Right there. All right. Needs to break that area for it to be somewhat schmexy to meow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Let's take a look over here. All right. Let's see how MTVA is holding up. MTVA. All right. MTVA currently formed a bit of a resistance right over here at 171. MTVA needs to break 171. Needs to break resistance at 171 for it to be somewhat schmexy to meow. There we go. That's what it has to do right there. All right. Let's see here. AMST. Trying to curl, but needs a lot of volume. Needs volume. AMST. Trying to curl. but needs more volume for it to really be schmexy like that. Let's see what happens there. All right. In the meantime, RUBI, RUBI. Let's take a look at RUBI. All right, RUBI pulling back down a little bit, pulling down a little bit. All right. All right, all right, all right. RUBI needs volume to curl and break the VWAP at 461 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. RUBI needs that volume to break the VWAP right there. All right. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 600, 600, 600, 600. All right. All right, all right, all right. Let's see here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. Let's see here. Let's take a look. We already took a look at AMST. Let's take a look at INM, see how INM's holding up. INM. Let's see. Needs to break the descending wedge right there. And the VWAP. INM needs to break the descending wedge and the VWAP at 186 for it to be so much schmexy to mya. There we go. RUBI, RUBI. Let's see how Ruby's holding up. Needs to curl and break that VWAP at 461. Needs to curl and break the VWAP at 461 right there. Bop right there. Alright. Alright, let's see here. WNW. Alright, WNW needs to curl and break the VWAP. This is a China stock, by the way. It's Meiwu Technology Company Limited. This needs to break the VWAP at 612 for it to be schmexy to mya and curl. WNW. WNW needs volume to curl and break the VWAP at 612 for it to be so much schmexy to mya. Alright. Let's see here. MTVA. MTVA broke above the downtrend but is still, alright, and curled slightly but still needs to break that 171 resistance right there. Alright, let's get this graffiti pencil activated over here. Bop right there. Oh, excuse me. Bop right there. And then pulled back right over here. Alright, MTVA as of now. MTVA formed a descending wedge. Needs to break the resistance at 171 as well as the VWAP at 196 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go. There we go right there. GIPR. Alright. Needs to break the pennant and needs to break the VWAP at 35 cents. Alright. So GIPR consolidated below the VWAP needs to break the pennant and the VWAP at 35 cents right there for it to be so much schmexy to mya. There we go. Alright, and then of course we got HUBC. Alright, this stock has curled its way on up right over here. Looks like it's about ready to test the VWAP at 17 cents, so we'll see what happens there. Alright. Alright, let's see. So, HUBC. Alright. Curling up and testing the VWAP at 17 cents right there. There we go. That's what we got going on right there. And AGYS, AGYS moving on some low volume, has a 22 million float, low volume at 76,000. Agility's shares are trading higher after the company reported better than expected Q4 financial results and issued a fiscal year 2027 sales guidance above estimates. So they got that going on right there, but it is very choppy because it's moving on low volume. A lot of chop here, a lot of chop here, not too schmexy to me. So as of now, AGYS choppy, upward movement on very low volume with indecisive wicks. Not something I potentially trust, really, so not looking too schmexy right there. AGYS, not looking too schmexy. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 800. All right, there we go. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Bop right there. All right, give me 1 sec. There we go. There we go. All right. Hang on 1 second. 1 second. There we go. All right. Beautiful. All right. Now let's take a look at some other requests here. All right. All right. Let's see here. All right. All right. So, someone requested NOW. This one looks like a very heavy, expensive stock. NOW, this is a pretty pricey stock. Ooh. All right. I mean, I'll take a look at it, sure, but I mean, it's pretty pricey. All right. So, NOW, as of now, not looking too schmexy right there. Not looking too schmexy. As of now, formed a pennant, is moving above the VWAP at 108.81. However, it is very, 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 very choppy in terms of price action. Very, very choppy. Not something I would consider schmexy in my opinion. We'll see what happens here. So let's get a support and resistance line right over here. All right. Support and resistance lines right over here. All right. So NOW. Expensive. Alright, let's take a look at the float. Float is excuse me. There we go. There's the float. Float is 1 billion. Oof, not schmexy at all. Alright, volume is 2.6 million. Alright. Heavy float, low volume. Heavy float, extremely heavy float. Heavy float and low volume. Formed a pennant on choppy price action. Needs volume to break the pennant and the resistance at 109.19 right there. And even then, to me, not schmexy at all because it's just too expensive and very, very high float and very, very low volume. Not schmexy to me. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 900. Let's take a look and see what else we got going on here. What are the stunks we got going on? Let's see. All right. Someone requested MNTS. All right. Let's see here. Hold on 1 second. All right. MNTS. This stock is currently down 1%. Not too schmexy to me. Not schmexy to me. Someone requested this very choppy price action. Take a look over here. All right, you got chop over here, chop over there, chop over there, Chop over here. Ugh, Chop City. Not Schmexy to Mya. MNTS. MNTS. Chop City. Not Schmexy to Mya. Needs to break above the VWAPA at 611 for it to be somewhat Schmexy to Mya. Alright. Very choppy. Not Schmexy to Mya. Alright. Not Schmexy. No. No, 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 no. Alright. We're going to take a look at some other stocks in the meantime. In the meantime, let's take a look at some other stocks. Hold on. Boom. Right there. Alright. Let's take a look back at AMST, see how it's doing. AMST looks like it's curling its way on up right now. Oh boy. Hold on 1 second. Right there. Alright. So, currently testing the VWAP. AMST curling and testing that VWAP right there. It's trying, but it has to break that 245 mark. So, AMST is trying. Alright. AMST moved up slightly. Tested the VWAPA at 246, at 245, actually 245, and peaked above it slightly. Alright, needs more volume for it to be somewhat schmexy to Mya. Alright, let's take a look at INM. Alright, INM looks like it's curling its way on up slightly. Alright, INM trying to curl its way on up slightly. INM, slight curl, needs to break the descending wedge and the VWAP at 183 for it to be somewhat schmexy to me. That's what we got going on right there. Boom, right there. Bop. There we go. Alright. CODX. Let's see how that's doing. Price spike right there on low volume. Price spike on low volume right there. Up 62%. Alright. CODX. Price spike on low volume. Up 62%. There we go. Bop right there. Alright, let's take a look at EZGO, because EZGO is another one. Let me see. EZGO. That one had a price spike and then pulled back right there. EZGO was 21 million float, 2 million volume. EZGO did have a price spike earlier. EZGO price spike on low volume pulled back. Alright, that's what we got for EZGO. Alright, let's take a look over here. Alright, let's see about MTVA. How's MTVA holding up? MTVA, this one is pulling back. Pulling back down, forming another downtrend. Not looking too schmexy to Mya as of now. Alright, could potentially also be a pennant, but as of now, MTVA needs to break the new downtrend and the resistance at 171 for it to be somewhat schmexy to Mya. There we go. Alright. And of course, let's take a look over here. Alright. What's EZGO doing now? EZGO. It's got a it's got a bottom tail, but it's a bottom tail red. Not too schmexy to Mya. Alright, this is also a China stock. So a lot of these China stocks, they tend to go up, then they tend to drop back down. Not too schmexy to Mya. Not too schmexy to Mya. You know how it is, ladies and gentlemen. You know how it is. Alright. Let's take a look at HEYS. Actually, excuse me, that one's expensive and it has very heavy float, low volume. Not too schmexy to me. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. Let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get it. All right. There we go. There we go. All right. So, we got that going on right there. That is what we got going on. Let's see what else we got here. What other stonks do we have? All right. All right, all right, all right. Okay, there we go. All right, all right, all right. All right. Oh, by the way, AMST called it yesterday at 3:53 p.m. All right, actually 4:53 p.m. Eastern Standard Time yesterday on the private Discord prior to its run up 254%. Actually, excuse me, 286% right there. 286%. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. All right. Oh, hold on. Let me just actually take a picture of this. All right. Beautiful. All right. So, there we are. All right. All right. All right. There we go. There we go. All right. So, somebody requested early this morning. Hold on. Another stonk over here. Ah. Alright. Someone requested AMST. AMST. So let's take a look at AMST. AMST currently up 204%. Formed a bit of a pennant just below the VWAP right there. So, let's take a look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a look at that. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 1100. 1100, 1100, 1100. Yes, sir. All right. There we are. There we are. All right. So, AMST shares are sharing higher after the company reported a year-over-year increase in Q3 financial results. This stock is currently now up 206%. Needs to break the pennant and needs to break the VWAP at 245 for it to be schmexy to me. AMST formed a pennant just below the VWAP. Needs to break above 245 for it to be somewhat schmexy to me. There we go. There we go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. All right, all right, all right. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 1200, 1200, 1200, 1200. All right, let's get it. All right, so let's take a look over here. All right, we did AMST. Let's check out INM again. INM. All right, INM as of now still trying to break above this little descending wedge right over here. Still trying to break above this little descending wedge. Needs to really break the 183 mark right there. All right, INM. INM needs to break above the descending wedge and the VWAPA at 183 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. All right. InMed Pharmaceuticals shares are trading higher after the company announced a merger with Mentari Therapeutics, so they got that going on right there. It is kind of consolidated below the VWAP. Can it break 183? Can it break above it right there? That's what it needs to do right there. MTVA 3 million float, 52 million volume. Let's see how MTVA is holding up. All right, it is having a bit of a curl now. It is curling up slightly now. That is excellent, but it needs to still break the VWAP at 196. So MTVA curling broke this little 171 area. All right, MTVA. All right, let's see here. MTVA curling up and broke the resistance at 171. Needs to break the VWAPA at 196 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. That's what we got going on right there. All right, Alex, good morning. He says, can Codex break 240 and break out? Let's see. Let's see if CODX can break out there. Well, Code Diagnostics shares are trading higher after the company announced it has completed the assay development strategy for the BYND virus. All right. On May 17th, the WHO declared the Ebola outbreak that caused the BYND virus strain in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Uganda a public health emergency of international concern. So that was something that went down today. But this is all, this is just news, really. This is more so like, oh, we have a strategy. Okay, cool. What's that got to do with tea in China? So give me they don't go into they don't elaborate what the strategy is, though. That's the thing, right? So that's the thing to me. It's kind of like the oil stocks with the events going on in the Middle East, right? Where you basically have stocks that are like, okay, cool. I guess it's kind of doing something sort of, but okay, cool. It's more so just geopolitical rather than anything, or just circumstantial. There's no actual news on what the stock has done or what the company has done. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things like, oh yeah, we found out about this virus in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and we have a plan for it. Okay, dope. What's the plan? That's it. They didn't say anything. That's the only downside with that, Let me get some support and resistance lines, though. Let me get some support and resistance lines. All right, so as of now, CODX has some resistance at the VWAP. All right, it just broke above the VWAP, actually. Has new resistance at 226, which is where the resistance line is. It then has some more resistance right around here at 243. And finally, 254 is the next resistance line right there. So as of now, CODX, all right, curled above the VWAPA, needs volume to break the resistance at 226 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go, CODX. That's what they got going on right there. Hold on, let's get a share party going. Let's get to 1300, 1300, 1300, 1300. All right, let's get that share party going on right there. So can it break above 240? Maybe we'll see what happens. All right, it does have some resistance at 240 though. It does have some resistance, especially specifically at 243. So it would have to break 226, then 243, then 254, which is a high a day, for it to be Shmexi Tumya. That's what it's got to do. But first things first, first step for it is to stay above the VWAP, and it has to break above 226 for it to be somewhat Shmexi Tumya. Otherwise, meh. You know how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. You know how it goes right there. All right, so that's what we got going on right there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's get a share party going on. Let's get AMST. AMST. Let's take a look at AMST. How's AMST holding up right there? Still within the pennant. Still needs to break above that pennant right there for it to be so much mexy to me. It also has some resistance right over here at 244. Has resistance at 244 for it to be so much mexy to me. AMST needs to break the resistance line at 244 for it to be so much mexy to me. Needs to break that resistance, then needs to break the resistance at 245, which is where the VWAP is. So we got that going on right there. That is what we got going on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Let's see what else you got here. What else we got? What else we got? Let me add them. Let me add them. All right. Hold on 1 second. 1 second, ladies and gents. All righty. All right. All right. All right. Let's see here. All right, all right, all right. Let's see. Let's take a look at some other stonks here. Let's take a look at some stonk requests. Some stonk requests. Somebody requested ADBE. Okay, it's ADBE. This seems like a very expensive stock, but we'll take a look at it. ADBE. Alpha Delta Bravo Echo. All right. Very choppy price action and very expensive. Ugh, nope. Nope, this is not looking schmexy to me. Just take a look over here. Take a look over here and you'll understand what I mean. Alright, Shop City over here. Shop City over here and Chop City over here. And it's expensive chop over here. Some more chop over there. Alright, and a lot of indecisive wicks. A lot of indecisive wicks and a lot of choppiness, man. ADBE. ADBE. Alright, this is Adobe Inc. Alright, ADBE has a very heavy float, very light volume. Float is 361.9. I call it 362 million, right? And the volume is 92,000. So, extremely heavy float and low volume. Choppy price action with indecisive wicks, very expensive. Alright, and for all intents and purposes, much as I may like Adobe, the stock right now is looking like trash. So, not schmexy to me, not schmexy to me. Alright, that's what we got going on right there. That is what we got going on. Hold on 1 second. 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. There we go. Alright. Let's see. Let's see here. Let's see what we got going on. Let's see what we got going on right here. Ooh, hold on 1 second. Stretching the old vertebrae. Ooh, that's the stuff right there. Oh, yeah. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 1500. But how you guys doing, ladies and gentlemen? How you guys doing? Talk to me. Fala conmigo. Fala conmigo. Talk to me. How's everybody doing today? Yeah, hope everybody's having a wonderful Taco Tuesday. Hope you guys are planning on getting some tacos. Me, I might get some. I'm in the mood for some steak tacos, right? A little bit of chicken, right? A little bit of chicken, man. Ooh. Oh, yeah. I'm in the mood for some steak and chicken tacos, some shrimp tacos. Ever have shrimp tacos? Shrimp tacos are amazing, especially when you chop up the shrimp and just put it in there. Oh, yeah. All right. All right. Some fish tacos. Oh, yeah. Like, I've had all sorts of good tacos, man. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, man. I love Taco Tuesday. It's like my favorite weekly holiday. A taco a week keeps the doctor a geek. I don't know. Yes. Alright, so, you know what? Let's take a look at AMST, see how AMST is doing. AMST, alright, as of now, AMST still needs to curl, unbreak the VWAP. AMST still needs to curl and break the pennant and the resistance line at 245 right there. Has to break that resistance. Alright, INM curling slightly off the descending wedge. Needs a bit of volume, but it is curling slightly off the descending wedge. But then pulled back a little bit. Alright, at 185. So it has to break above 185. INM curled. Oops, excuse me. INM curled off the descending wedge and needs to break the resistance at 183 for it to be somewhat schmexy to me. Alright, there we go. Alright, RUBI, RUBI. Actually, we'll take a look at MTVA first. MTVA curling its way on up slightly, slowly but surely making its way on up there. We'll see what happens, ladies and gentlemen. MTVA curling its way on up, needs volume to break the VWAP at 195 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya right there. There we go. Bot right there. Alright, let's take a look at RUBI, RUBI, not Rooney, RUBI, RUBI. There we go. Alright. Alright, looks like it is moving downward off that upside down cup and handle right there. Moving downward off that upside down cup and handle. We are 3 minutes away from the bell. The bell! It deafens me. RUBI needs to break the downtrend and the pennant as well as resistance at 457 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go. Alright. That's what we got going on right there. Let's take a look at VRAX. VRAX. Alright, VRAX right there. Alright. Needs to break this pennant right here for it to be somewhat schmexy to me. Hold on 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. Alright. There we go. There we go. Alright. 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 Let me get this over here. Alright, alright, alright. Alright, there we go. Alright, there we are, there we are. Alright. 1 second. Let me just share something real quick. Bot right there. All right, we got the bell. The bell. It deafens me. Ah. All right, 1 second. There we are. There we are. Let's take a look at VRAX. 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 VRAX needs to break the descending wedge. Alright. Needs to break that descending wedge. Danker says, morning, bro. Any thoughts on CREG? I will take a look at it. I shall take a look. Hold on 1 second. It looks like it's breaking that descending wedge, though. 1 second. Up. VRAX shot up a little bit, pulled back a little bit. Ah. All right. Wait. It's trying. It's trying. We'll see what happens. All right. All right. VRAX needs volume to curl off that descending wedge right there. All right. 1 second. Let me just take a look at HCAI. HCAI. Choppy. Meh. Let me just put this there real quick. We will take a look at CREG in just a second. Just got to go through these stocks right here. HCAI, this is a China stock, Huachen AI Parking Management Technology Holding Co. Limited, and it is a very, very choppy Chinese stock. HCAI, choppy with indecisive wicks. All right. With indecisive wicks, needs volume to break the VWAPA at 956 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go. All right. And all right, let's take a look at CREG. CREG. Let's take a look. Let's take a look for our boy Danker. All right. So CREG as of now, this is a China stock. This is a China stock, ladies and gentlemen. It is pulling back quite a bit. All right. CREG is pulling back quite a bit here. All right. So as of now, with CREG, all right, this stock is currently down 8%, moving very far down below the VWAP right here. VWAP is at 64 cents. As of now, this stock did have some movement upward and then moved above the ABCD pattern. Moved on a nice ABCD pattern right over here, right? Let's take a look. Boom, right here. A to B, B to C, C to D. All right. And then proceeded to kind of just consolidate and get choppy. And then just drop back down below the VWAP. So as of now, this stock is on a downtrend. Very steep downtrend. Needs to break the VWAP at 64 cents for first things first, it has to break the downtrend. That's number one. So CREG needs to break the downtrend. Needs to break the downtrend for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. All right, that's what we got going on right there. AMST. All right, Alex says, this funny, I'm in CREG at 56 cents. I've just been holding it down this morning. Oh, I hope you made a profit, brother, but that stock is it's currently pulling back quite a bit. So hopefully you made your money, Alex. I hope you made your money. Hope you made your money, you know what I mean? All right. Now, AMST curling its way on up off the pennant, broke the VWAP at 246 and is moving its way on up right now. All right, let's get this graffiti pencil activated over here. All right, there we go. All right, so needs to break the resistance at 263 for it to be somewhat schmexy to me. AMST needs to break the resistance at well, hold on. First things first, curled off the pennant and broke the VWAPA. Needs to break the next resistance at 263 for it to be somewhat schmexy to me. There we go. WNW. Let's see how WNW is holding up. Now, WNW is a China stock, so I don't entirely trust it. All right, let's take a look over here. Bop right there. All right, needs to break this pennant. WNW needs to break the pennant over here and needs to break the VWAP over here at 593 for it to be somewhat schmexy to me. Right there. All right. All right. So, let's see here. WNW needs volume to break the pennant and the VWAPA at 593 for it to be so much schmexy to me. Otherwise, you know how it is. WNW did have a nice run earlier in the day, but it has since pulled back, so it is what it is right there. All right. Let's take a look over here. Hold on. Let's get a share party going. Let's get to 1700. 1700. 1700. Hold on one sec. One sec. One sec. There we go. All right. All right. One sec. There we go. All right. There we go. Alrighty. So, we're just doing our thing right now, ladies and gentlemen. We're just doing our thing today. Alright. Alright, alright, alright. Alright, let's see over here. Let's take a look at Night Rogue. Good morning, brother. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope you're having a wonderful day, brother, man. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're making lots of money, Night Rogue. Hope you're making lots of money. Alright, let's see what we got here. Alright. Hold on one second. One second. I'm just getting into the requests real quick. There we go. Alright. Somebody requested AIIO. Let's take a look at AIIO. Let's see what we got going on for AIIO. Alright, AIIO fell off a cliff as of now. Not looking too schmexy right there. AIIO. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't even give it a descending wedge. It's just moving downward right there. AIIO fell off a cliff right here. Needs to break the downtrend and needs to break the VWAP. AIIO fell off a cliff. Needs to break the downtrend and the VWAP at 536 for it to be somewhat schmexy to me. There we go. Alright. Someone requested SEGG. SEGG down 7%. Choppy with low volume. Not looking schmexy. You take a look over here. Choppiness here. Indecisive wicks there. Alright. And a downward trajectory right there. So, as of now with the stock, SEGG, me personally, I don't like it. Alright, SEGG is down 7%. So, I hope you made your money there, my guy, but, yeah. Alright, so, SEGG on the downtrend needs Alright. Indecisive wicks. Has a lot of indecisive wicks. And choppy price action. Needs a lot of volume and a miracle. Alright, for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. That's for SEGG. GIPR. Let's take a look. GIPR is curling its way on up right now. This stock I called earlier, it did pull up a bit off the pennant. Still has some resistance lines for it right there. It is at 34 cents. That is where the resistance is. So as of now, GIPR curled off the pennant and needs to break the resistance at 35 cents, which is where the VWAP is, because it just broke the other resistance at 34 cents, so we'll see what goes on there. Alright, but it needs to break that resistance at 35 for it to really be schmexy to mya. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Alright. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much it for me. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as ring that bell icon to stay notified when new videos are uploaded. And remember to share, because sharing is caring, ladies and gentlemen. Sharing is caring. And, of course, if you want access to our private Discord, link to... Oh, Alex says CODX moving. All right, let's take a look at CODX before we go. CODX, yes, good. CODX is indeed moving. Alright, let's see here. Curling its way on up right now. Alright. CODX needs to break 254, which is the new high a day. Alright, CODX moving on up. Curled off the descending wedge. Needs more volume to break the high of day at 254 for it to be somewhat schmexy to mya. There we go. Alright. And Danker says, thanks, bro. Of course. My pleasure, brother. Of course. My pleasure. Alright. So, as of now, that's what CODX is doing. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as ring that bell icon to stay notified when new videos are uploaded. And remember to share, because sharing is caring, ladies and gentlemen. Sharing is caring. And, of course, if you want access to our private Discord, the link to join is in the description down below, as well as the pinned comment section. So be sure to check that out, because we pick a lot of baggers a lot of times. We're just made different. And the early bird gets the cash. The moolah, the loots, the cashola, the big bucks, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, be sure to check us out on our social media platforms, especially our YouTube, at Coaching Money. At Coaching Money, where we do lots of live streams, stock reviews, stock analysis, all sorts of long-form and short-form videos. The short-form videos, some of which are informative, other ones are motivational, other ones are just flat-out funny and humorous. So we do a lot of different stuff there, ladies and gentlemen. We do a lot of different stuff. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to check us out on our X.com, a.k.a. Twitter, at Coaching Money. At Coaching Money, where we do lots of stock reviews, stock analysis, and live streams. All right, and of course, be sure to check us out on our Twitch at Coaching Money. At Coaching Money, where we do lots of live streaming as well. Be sure to check us out on our Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Coaching Money. At Coaching Money, where we do lots of stock reviews and stock analysis. And of course, be sure to check us out on our TikTok, Tiki-Taki, a.k.a. the Tac. The Tac. You can find us there at DBL Nicks. At DBL Nicks, at DBL NICKS, and the screen name is Coach Nick Money. So, be sure to check that out. Be sure to show all those some love. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Ring that bell icon. If you're on a certain social media that requires you to follow. Be sure to check out all that wonderful stuff as well. And stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because we will be going live later today at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Power Play. Power Play, hosted by the legend himself, Coach Nick Money, as he traverses the stock market, prior to Power Hour. And what does he do? He takes a look at the stocks. He gives his honest review, his honest analysis of the stock right there, and he keeps an eye on it real close, you know what I mean? And basically gives his honest review and analysis on the stock prior to its move on Power Hour, right? And then what he does is he lets the stock simmer on high heat, a little bit of high heat with a little bit of paprika, a little bit of sazon, a little bit of cumin, a little bit of turmeric, a little bit of tagine right there, you know, tagine right there. All right, and of course he has his some little bit of salt and pepper, some lemon pepper steppers, you know what I mean? Yes sir, yes sir. All right, and of course all that beautiful stuff right there, all that beautiful stuff right there. So yeah, be sure to show him some love and be sure to check it out. All right, on all the social medias, be sure to show him love on all the social medias. And yeah, all right, quick thing before we wrap up. If you've been watching and you're serious about trading small caps, don't just sit on the outside trying to piece it together. We've got a 4-day full access pass for only $9.99, as well as a 3-month full access pass that amounts to $66.67 per month. And it's full access, ladies and gentlemen. So you come inside, you get to see how we actually operate live. You get to see how we structure trade ideas, how we map levels, how we think about risk, how we handle momentum. You get access to our next day early watch list. You also get access to our 24/7 market news flow, which you can actually see on the right-hand side of the screen right here. It basically gives you a hyperlink to the full article, a synopsis of what's going on within said article, as well as a hyperlinks to the tickers that are affiliated with the news within said article as well. So you got that going on right there. It's a wonderful research tool. All right, you get access to our pre-market, regular hours, and after-hour scanners, which show you the ticker price, volume, float, change in percentage, whether the stock is moving up or down, as well as the time which it was scanned, and hyperlinks to each of the stocks, so you can actually research them, as well as catalyst context built right in. As such, you also get to check out our ticker tape, built to catch stocks just as they're starting to heat up, but before they go parabolic, ladies and gentlemen, as well as with the hyperlinks as well, because this isn't noise, we do structure, ladies and gentlemen. And if that's how you want to approach the market, grab the 4-day pass or the 3-month pass and come see it live. Link to join is in the description down below, as well as the pinned comments section, so be sure to check it out. And when you come in, let us know you saw us on the stream. We'd love to hear from you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, much love. Take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day, and peace out. Bye-bye, everybody.